Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you this week. We have as guests Lindsay Reinhart, who's been lobbying down in Salem for marijuana reform and working for Serious Extracts. Refugee from Idaho. We'll talk a little bit about that. And right next to her is Jason Gillespie, who's the president of Wisconsin NORML. So we'll have a wide-ranging conversation. We'll be taking your phone calls. And over in the wings is Mr. John Cornett, ready to belt out a couple of tunes. And then right next to me, of course, is the unstoppable, unflappable Mr. Casper Leach. We have some interesting hemp news stories for you tonight, some great videos, so stay tuned as we bring on our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
All right, our first story is from right here in the Beaver State. A joint committee of Oregon lawmakers spent Tuesday afternoon in a meeting pushing forward a bill that would allow recreational cannabis stores to sell tax-free medical marijuana to card-carrying patients in the state. Bill SB 1511 reads as follows, quote, "The measure prohibits taxation of retail sales made to medical registry identification card holders or their designated primary caregiver and clarifies that the local option sales tax does not apply to medical marijuana. It expands the early start retail sales to include edibles, topicals, and extracts, albeit it sets daily limits on sales of edibles and profiled carbon dioxide vaporizer cartridges containing marijuana extracts, exempts producers from canopy limits under specified conditions, and provides that limits on mature marijuana plants does not apply until April 1st, 2016, or to a person who has applied for an OLCC license," end quote. The Senate easily passed the bill with a vote of 18 to 10. The bill now goes before the House for their consideration. In addition to combining the recreation and medical stores, the bill would also allow adults over 21 to purchase. So we'll be talking more about this with Lindsay Reinhart, who's been very active down in Salem in this session, just after our hemp news segment, and John Cornett singing. Out of St. Louis, Missouri, the prevalence of problematic cannabis is decreasing according to data published in the Journal of American Medical Association Psychiatry. Investigators at the Washington School of Medicine in St. Louis, Missouri, assessed trends in marijuana use and in the prevalence of marijuana use disorders during the years 2002 to 2013. The researchers determined that self-reported use of cannabis by adults increased an estimated 19%, but that reports of cannabis-related problems actually declined during this period. The lead researcher of the study said, quote, "We're certainly seeing some increases in marijuana use, but our survey didn't notice any increase in marijuana-related problems. Certainly some people are having problems, so we should remain vigilant, but the sky is not falling," end quote. Separate evaluations of self-reported marijuana use by young people have determined that the rates of cannabis use by high school students is significantly lower today than it was 15 years ago. The study's findings contradict those of a widely publicized 2015 paper, which alleged that the use of marijuana had doubled over the past decade and that an estimated 1/3 of those who consume cannabis did so problematically. This study, Recent Trends in the Prevalence of Marijuana Use and Associated Disorders in the United States, appears in the Journal of the American Medical Association Psychiatry this month. On the other side of the country, in Vermont, home of Bernie Sanders, the final vote of a measure occurred on Thursday in the Vermont Senate for a bill that would legalize marijuana for adult use in Vermont. The bill, Senate Bill 241, now goes before the Vermont House of Representatives, who will begin working on it next week. We applaud the Senate for advancing this important legislation. Like most Vermonters, most members of the Senate recognize that prohibition is a failed policy. They voted to regulate marijuana because it will make our community safer. We're confident that Vermont House members who take an objective look at the evidence will arrive at the same conclusion as their colleagues. Marijuana is objectively less harmful than alcohol to the consumer and to society. We should be regulating it and controlling it, not forcing it into the underground market, as we have done here in the Northwest and Colorado. This bill would make possession of up to an ounce of marijuana legal in the state of Vermont for those over the age of 21. Marijuana cultivation sites, retail stores, and testing facilities would be tightly regulated. It would not allow homegrown cannabis or edibles. According to a poll released by the Vermont Public Radio on Monday, 55% of Vermont citizens support marijuana legalization for adult use. In a national story, the former United States Attorney General Eric Holder and fantasy friend of Casper Leach, who once had the power to unilaterally begin the process of rescheduling marijuana but didn't use it, now said he agrees that cannabis should be reclassified under federal law. Eric Holder said, quote, "I certainly think it ought to be rescheduled," he said in an interview on PBS. He went on and said, quote, "You know, we treat marijuana the same way we treat heroin now, and that clearly is not appropriate," end quote. It's nice to have Holder support for this sensible policy change, but it would have been better if he'd exercised the power to get marijuana rescheduling done while he was still in office. We hold that Holder and President Obama are good friends, so I hope the former Attorney General encourages his former boss and his successor, Loretta Lynch, as U.S. Attorney General, to follow through during these final months of the Obama administration and get the job done. There's absolutely no reason marijuana should be in Schedule 1, and it would be absurd to keep passing the buck to Congress when federal law clearly gives the administration the power to act, Holder said, end quote.
You know it's because he smoked your herb with me that he had a change of mind.
Now we know. In Utah, voting on medical marijuana bill SB 73, the Utah Senate voted 17-12 on Thursday, yesterday afternoon, approving a bill that would allow patients with specific illnesses to use marijuana edibles, extracts, and oils. Proposed by Utah Senator Mark Mattson, the bill clearly defines cannabis, he said, and adds child-proofing standards, dosing guidelines, and other regulations. The bill now must go before the Utah House for a vote. Supporters of the bill expect opposition in the Utah House, but believe there's positive vote could help rally the 38 votes needed to get the bill passed in the Utah House of Representatives. Madison watered down the bill after opposition from the Senate and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. Another competing bill was passed earlier this week in the Senate in an 18-8 vote. SB 89, a much more narrow bill, would allow for cannabis extracts to treat certain medical conditions. Both bills now go to the House for consideration. In Jerusalem, the daily long-term use of cannabis is associated with improved analgesic and reduced opioid use in patients with treatment-resistant chronic pain conditions, according to clinical trial data reported online ahead of print in the Clinical Journal of Pain. Investigators with Hebrew University in Israel evaluated the use of cannabis on pain in a cohort of 176 patients, each of whom had been previously unresponsive to all conventional pain medications. The subjects inhaled THC-dominant cannabis daily, up to 20 grams per month, for a period of at least 6 months. A majority of participants, about 66%, experienced improvement in their pain symptom scores after cannabis therapy, and most reported robust improvements in the quality of their life. The subjects' overall consumption of opioid drugs declined 44% by the end of the trial, and a significant percentage of the participants discontinued opioid therapy altogether over the course of the study. The authors concluded, quote, "In summary, this long-term prospective cohort suggests that cannabis treatment in a mixed group of patients with treatment-resistant chronic pain may result in improved pain, sleep, and quality of life outcomes, as well as reduced opioid use," end quote. The Israeli results are similar to those reported in a 2015 Canadian trial, which concluded that chronic pain patients who use herbal cannabis daily for 1 year experienced reduced discomfort and increased quality of life compared to controls, and did not possess an increased risk of serious side effects. Separate data published in 2014 in the Journal of the American Medical Association determined that states with medical marijuana laws experience far fewer opiate-related deaths than states that prohibit the plant. Investigators from the RAND Corporation reported similar findings in 2015, concluding, quote, states permitting medical marijuana dispensaries experience a relative decrease in both opioid addictions and opioid overdose deaths compared to states that do not, end quote. Clinical data published in 2011 in the journal Clinical Pharmacology and Therapeutics previously reported the administration of vaporized cannabis safely augments the analgesic effect of opioids. A scientific review published earlier this year assessing the clinical use of cannabinoids for pain in over 1,300 subjects concluded, overall, the recent literature supports the idea that currently available cannabinoids are modestly effective analgesics that provide a safe therapeutic option for managing chronic non-cancer-related pain and possibly cancer-related pain. This study, the effect of medicinal cannabis on pain and quality of life outcomes in chronic pain, prospective open-label study, appears in the Clinical Journal of Pain. Final story tonight is from north of the border. Canadian federal court judge on Wednesday struck down regulations restricting the rights of medical marijuana patients to grow their own cannabis. Till now, medical patients in Canada had to buy their cannabis only from dispensaries that were grown commercially. This judge gave the Liberal government 6 months to come up with new rules. Judge Michael Phelan ruled in Vancouver that marijuana for medical purposes regulations were an infringement on the Charter of Civil Rights and declared that they have no force and effect. The judge suspended his declaration for 6 months to give the federal government time to come up with new rules for medical marijuana. That's the end of our Hemp News segment for tonight. Standing by in the wings, Mr. John Crenette's ready to play some music. Hey, John.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Very well.
This is a song I wrote a little while back, playing it by request. Remember our audience tonight. We do have a studio audience called We Are Many. We are many, we are strong. If many be so wrong, giving in to too many lies. Doesn't anybody really care why? Can it be that we are right? Can we be peaceful through this fight? All we really want to see is humanity set free. We're just one big family. Once united, we are free. Now's the time to make a stand. Do the best that each one can. Once awakened, we will see the potential of infinity, and abundance will be the norm when we are finally through this storm. Can it be that we are right? Can we be peaceful through this fight? All we really want to see is humanity set free. We're just one big family. Once united, we are free. Now's the time to make a stand. Do the best that each one can. We're just one big family. Once united, we are free. Now's the time make a stand, do the best that each one can.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Mr. John Cornett. And we have some great guests tonight. Welcome to the show, Lindsay. This
Thank
is Lindsay
you.
Reinhardt. Casper. Good to see you over there, Jason. Good to see you. I haven't seen you since the Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest.
Yeah.
So it's great that you're here. We'll
Midwest, what part of?
It's Madison, Wisconsin.
I'm from Indiana, so ain't too far from you.
No?
down there. So, Lindsay, you've been lobbying our state legislator.
I have been.
And it's been a great thing that you've been down there. You want to tell us about the bills that are before the legislature and what you think our viewers should do right now in terms of making sure the legislature enacts the right laws?
Well, currently all of the laws are drafted and being voted on by the House and the Senate. Mostly the House now, I believe, at this point. Really, they just need to hear from us as regularly as possible on the issues that are concerning us. And that kind of goes for any issue, really. That being said, you know, you talked about SB 1511.
Yeah.
So that offered the early sales of low-dose extracts, non-psychoactive topicals, and actually they amended that bill to allow all extracts to be included in early sales. And the Senate passed that the House passed that today. So that is now going to the governor's desk. House Bill 4014 was the first one that they passed out of the committee. That's already gone. It's already awaiting the governor's signature.
And what will that one do?
That one was, pardon me, it's been a long day.
Take
That
your
one
time.
was for the, I'm sorry, it's escaping me right this second. Can we come
Okay.
back to that one?
Sure.
So 1511 was the early sales. It also allowed the programs to combine together. So one person can opt into one program and one person can opt into another. So you can have adult use markets opting in on their licensing for medical to provide medical, and you can have the medical opting in to provide adult use cannabis as well. So that was a really neat bill. Senate Bill 1598 was the one that was passed out of committee on Tuesday, along with Senate Bill 1601, which Senate Bill 1598 was for land use compatibility mostly. And so it allows micro canopies to be developed for the medical growers that are facing patient cuts from the plant limits that were enacted last session from House Bill 3400. This allows those patients to keep their grower essentially if that grower is willing to opt into the OLCC with a micro canopy. Then they can have as many patients as they would like to help with personal agreements from the OHA. So it's a different kind of system, but
So that's just come out of committee now, though.
yes, it came out of committee on Tuesday.
And what's that bill number again?
That one is Senate Bill 1598.
1598. That seems really important. You know, I've been taking care of about 150 patients, probably 40 of them out of state, though, but still 90 that are in state. And so under the current rules as passed by, House Bill 3400 last year, I was going to have to get rid of, almost 100 patients. So under this, there'd be an option of the OLCC licensing that.
Right, you could opt in. It would provide, by that statute, 5,000 square foot canopy or a 1,250 square foot canopy to cover those medical grows that would like to opt into the OLCC market. That would also allow them to sell into both medical and adult use dispensaries. So either way on that one, it can go either way. It also allows the adult use cannabis providers to provide that to the patients as well.
And so that bill number was Senate Bill
1598.
1598.
And then Senate Bill 1601 was to, basically there was, in 2014, there was, House Bill 4014, there was an allowance for a patient to not have to pay taxes if they used an adult use dispensary. So the dispensaries that are over the age of 21, they would not have to pay taxes if they utilize those dispensaries. Unfortunately, it was declared an emergency, but under the Oregon Constitution, you can't declare tax law emergencies. So they created 1601 to allow that to happen. So under Senate Bill 1601, patients do not pay taxes at adult use dispensaries. Also in 4014, to answer your previous question, the right to use your green slip from your certified mail after you ship for your card,
your card.
that is now valid to enter a dispensary. And so
Alright.
we've got to wait for the rules on that, but that's really good news. That will
That
keep
is.
people from going without safe access. And also, the OHA will now be required by rule to provide a receipt for those things.
All right, great. I know they closed their window at their office here. They had a
Right.
couple people, and they stamped those, and those were very useful for patients, but they did away with that. They raised the fees and did away with that a couple of years ago.
Unfortunately, by rule, the OHA has decided to raise grower fees to $200 per patient. Those are under proposed rules, and everybody offered testimony on those rules in January. Those rules have not become final, and I anticipate those rules to change when the next session's rules, they will just completely change them. So it'll be interesting to see how the rules develop. There was also another break for patients that came, pardon me for not remembering which bill it was, but that allowed all veterans to be given their card for $20 instead of just veterans with PTSD.
Oh, I'm a disabled vet too. Casper's a vet regular. Well, that's good. So that one is just a proposal, or is that where's
No,
that?
that's
bill at?
already done. So it
All
just
right.
has to get the governor's signature. Some of them still need a third reading. So 1598 and 1601 still need a third reading from the House. I anticipate those to be very soon. And then, as soon as the governor signs them, she'll sign 1601 first, because that was the tax law that you couldn't declare an emergency. And then she'll presumably sign 4014, 1511, and 1598.
So are all these bills good as far as from your reading? Are there any of them that have negative implications?
I think that this session was a huge improvement over last session. I think that there's always going to be something in some bills that people disagree with. I know that for the growers, there was a huge concern over the land use compatibility statements. They took a lot of testimony on that, and they also removed that being necessary for the people opting into the OLCC. So that was really a big win for us. Personally, I had a little bit of heartbreak when an amendment to tell the OHA that they could not limit a patient's dosage was not voted through. And that was on Senate Bill 1598. We had an amendment saying they could not limit a patient's dosage at all, because they've been trying to through the Rules Advisory Committee. And we had another amendment that set the limits very, very reasonably high to accommodate a patient's dosage. Neither of those were taken. However, the OHA, I think, got the message pretty clearly from the committee that they weren't trying to hinder patients, and so the OHA then redrafted their proposed limits, and so we'll expect to see those be much higher when they come back with the new rules.
So for our Oregon viewers, we should tell them to contact their state legislators and urge them to pass all of these bills then.
Absolutely. I feel that it's already going very well. Most of these have been passing out of the House with a drastic majority, about 46 to 10-ish. In the Senate, it's usually about 20 to 10, roughly.
That's a great majority.
It is a great majority. We've had a lot of success with this session, and the committee definitely seems like they are being very receptive to the things that they're hearing from our community. So I've found that pretty reassuring.
Well, I want to thank you for doing all of the work you've been doing down there, and for instance, coming to our lobby day and going down there every day almost, I think, to work on these things. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks
It's
for
been my
coming on the
pleasure.
show too. We'll be talking with you a little bit more about those in a moment, but we've got standing by over on the side here Jason Glaspie, who you're here. You've renewed your Oregon medical marijuana permit.
I did that
Just
yesterday.
under the deadline,
Yes.
which is coming up on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, the 1st.
Yeah, so
And it was-
if you don't renew it now, you wouldn't be able to renew it
Right.
because of the new restrictions. We haven't been able to do anything to change that.
Correct, and we're working on it. The OHA clarified
I know
on
you went with
Tuesday.
another Wisconsinite,
I
Gary
did.
Stewart, who's a friend of ours, been on the show several times, around to legislators last week when he was
lobbying
in
them
town.
to allow the stay of out-of-state patients. So what we needed was clarification saying that your card was going to be good past March 1st, because there was concern that it would not be.
Right.
They did clarify that on Tuesday, that it will be good through its expiration date, so that was a great thing to hear. We
Yes.
did ask for an amendment to allow out-of-state patients, and we were not given that amendment. That being said, I proposed to the entire committee that we put a box on the form from the OHA saying that an Oregon patient that's out-of-state patient understands that their meds need to be kept in Oregon because of the affirmative defense it offers you in your state, how valuable that card is for you.
Right.
And it
You want
was
to tell our viewers about that defense that for Wisconsin patients if they have an Oregon
Right.
card and recommendation?
Basically, if you have Oregon is the only state that allows for
At least until Tuesday.
At least until Tuesday, a sort of reciprocity for if you're covered in Oregon. No, sorry, if you're covered in Oregon, then you'll end up being covered in your home state because of the way our Constitution is written. We will accept other people's recommendations, and Oregon is the only state that makes recommendations
For out-of-state patients,
for out of state.
currently.
And so it has really been, a lifeline for a lot of people, a lot of patients. I'm one of them. We have, I think, like 40 or 50 from Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Gary
Yeah.
was saying, I think about 65.
Oh, 60, yeah.
Something like that. It was actually pretty big.
It's a pretty substantial number. And so coming here personally, I was able to attest that going from the state that inflicted Scott Walker upon the world, it's interesting to be in a utopia for marijuana.
Seems like utopia
Yeah.
compared to
Right.
Madison, Wisconsin.
Yes,
right?
I mean, and the dichotomy of that. I mean, we've been fighting annually with our legislatures and our governors, and we can even get it up to the governor. And depending upon who's sitting, no one will sign anything. We've tried different avenues of going with medical, trying to decriminalize it, trying to reduce fines, and really what we can do, the only thing we can do, we found, is go city by city, district by district, and have them vote on referenda to make it binding in their city, and hopefully have enough cities to eventually tip the majority in the state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very backwards way of doing it, and it takes forever. It's very Sisyphean. You're rolling it up a hill all the time. But that's what we have to
the
do.
first medical marijuana laws were San Francisco's municipal law,
Right.
before Prop 215 passed. So
Right, and that's-
there's a pathway to success
And
there.
that's the back door that we're having to take in.
Yeah.
It's just, it really does seem ludicrous coming to a state that everything is both medical and recreational to have this uphill battle in our home state, where we have the country's longest standing harvest festival.
Yeah.
And so we
I've been
celebrate it on
speaking
one
at that
side.
since
Yeah.
the 80s.
Yes. We celebrate marijuana and the progressive liberalism of doing what you want with weed on one side, but then it never makes it past people's desks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hypocrisy that we're dealing with.
We'll talk more about that in just a minute. We are taking phone calls tonight. If you have a question or comment about marijuana or medical marijuana or industrial hemp, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. We've had a couple callers standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello?
Hello.
Let me get you off speaker again.
Say that again.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Hey.
hey, it's your Facebook friend Bruce.
Hi, Bruce.
I just wanted to tell you thank you for all your work you did down there, and it sounds like you did a great job because it's like I got a Groupon, 25% coupon, I guess, because I'm a medical patient again after it took me 4 months to get my card because my doctor signed the thing 9/1953, and my birthday was 9/12/53, and he signed the paperwork for the date.
Oh.
And I got it by one day. I didn't have to get another exam, but shows you how picky they are. But thank you, Lindsay, and I'll see you tomorrow at the dinner.
Well, thank you,
So you're
Bruce.
able
I
to
appreciate
watch
it.
on the streaming video online?
I'm watching on TV, so
Oh,
I
on
think
cable.
we're off a little bit here.
Yeah, there's a little
Maybe
delay.
a few seconds or
So we
something.
can bleep
But,
out the obscene
I just
caller
wanted to
rating.
thank all of you for all your work you've done on behalf of patients, and I want to thank Lindsay for being such a good Facebook friend. And I've seen some of you people before when I used to work at Human Collective for 3 years. So I'm looking forward to meeting you, Lindsay. See you tomorrow,
Likewise,
okay?
Bruce.
And I'm gonna have to go get. Sounds like I'm gonna have to go to Value Village and get something to dress up in too. So,
Thanks for your phone call.
bye.
Hi.
Bye-bye. Okay, I think we got another caller standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi. I understand that the banks are not taking the cash from the people that sell cannabis.
Yeah, most banks will not. There are a few banks that will, but most banks will not.
Why? Which ones will?
Well, that's what everyone wants to know. They have what they're called green accounts. So one of them is United Credit Union, which is on Division. Another one is the Marion and Polk School Credit Union, or MAPS Credit Union. And so they will accept what they call green accounts as well. Do you know of any others, Lindsay?
I think there's one in Lakeview, Washington as well, but I'm not
Yeah,
recalling
there's
its
one
name.
called Timberland Bank up in Washington, which is based in Hoquiam, Washington on the coast in Grays Harbor, but it has branches throughout the Puget Sound area. It's got about 28 branches, and that's Timberland Bank. So those are the banks I can tell you off the top of my head.
I'm interested in, and there's others in the city that are interested in trying to get a state bank or a city bank, municipal bank, and that money would be perfect to start it. And if it's an immediate need, I would think that these people really need a safe place to put their money. And if the banks aren't taking it, then that's a perfect reason why the state should. Do you see the logic in that?
Certainly. In fact, I advocated in the last election cycle in a petition that didn't qualify to set up a state bank. So the state bank, just like North Dakota, would have a bank that follows state laws instead of just federal laws. And in fact, North Dakota did not have a recession during the Great Recession because the Bank of North Dakota puts all of its money into North Dakota, where if you go to any of the big major banks, those too big to fail, they invest their money in Timbuktu and all over the place. And so they, under state banks, they invest in their state. And so we're hoping someday to get a state bank.
Well, I saw the Senator Ron Wyden on a local television program this week that said that he's working on it, that he acknowledged the problem,
Great.
and he said he was working on it. Does anyone know who he's working on it with locally?
Well, Earl Blumenauer has also been working on reforms to the federal banking law. There's a lady named Ellen Brown who's written a number of books, been a guest on Casper Leach's radio network, who's written books and advocated for the establishment of more state banks. And so that's how I first came upon it, was through a guest on Casper Leach's radio network.
Well, EllenBrown.com is a wonderful resource, and her book, Web of Debt, is an excellent treatise on what banking is all about.
Yeah.
And
she's got several books.
The Federal Reserve was created at the beginning of the century.
Yeah.
And I think we have figured out an easy way to create a state bank. We just need the political will now. And because I am with a group associated with the Ellen Brown and Public Banking Institute.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on your email list then.
And I think there's an immediate need, and if others do also, then, I'd like to meet up with them. I have a meetup on the website, Meetup, there's a meetup site on Yahoo, and it's called What is Socialism? So I just, because, a state bank or a public bank is the ultimate socialism that helps support capitalism, but that will just bring us back to being in control of our money. It's nothing that's against capitalism at all, because I'm also an R.G. Wolf fan, and he's also said that, of course, socialism is the shadow of capitalism. It's not one or the other. They coexist and always have.
Very good point. Very good point.
We'd like to just make it work for everybody a little better, and it's not getting rid of capitalism, kind of a...
All right. Well, thanks for calling in and educating our audience on that topic. But there, a couple of banks that will accept green accounts now.
And I know that over the past couple of years, I have encouraged you to set up your own bank, and you have toyed with the idea and said that
I don't have money necessary to set up my own bank.
Because of that, and because of
the wrong guy.
different hurdles that you'd have to jump through, the different federal, the FICA reserve. It would be a difficult thing.
Funny.
It would take a group of
I have people telling me I should buy my own plane too, and I don't have money for that
well,
either.
don't you know enough people where you could get the bank set up and have marijuana be the thing that backs the dollar that's in the bank instead of having Federal Reserve?
Sounds like a good idea to me, but let's talk more about it. We do have another caller who's standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello, yes.
Hey, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Very well, very well.
So I had a question. I was wondering, could you tell me, like, how do you guys, like, increase the levels of Delta 9 THC that is in your cannabis plants? Because I know that's, like, considered to be one of the most medical properties.
Well, there are a lot of different stages in the production of tetrahydrocannabinol delta 9, our THC delta 9. There are several precursors to it, delta 2, 4, and others. And so one of the ways to increase it is the decarboxylation, which strips the carbon dioxide molecule off of it through a slight heating process. And so it can also be done chemically with alcohol and some other things. But that's the way to take lower forms of THC and have them become delta 9 and more psychoactive.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Oh, well, it's me again. I
Maybe
accidentally lost you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We just went on to more callers here.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say that if anyone goes to the website for ellenbrown.com, they can get that public banking information.
Yeah.
And of course, please, if there's anyone in Portland that is interested in helping me try to work to talk to the powers that be here in Portland, even, or Salem, to help do that, then I said, you just join the meetup. It's called What is Socialism? And it's just a lead-in to try to talk about public banking. So, I appreciate it very much, and good luck with everything else.
Best
I'm
of luck
so
to you.
happy I moved to Portland from Texas 6 years ago, and I'm not going back.
I grew up in Texas till I was 15, but I'm not going back either, except maybe to visit. Not very
Maybe
often
just
at
for
that.
a visit, but I'm here to stay. I love it.
Thanks for your call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, Jason, you're stuck with Scott Walker and the fight against repression.
Yes. And
Wisconsin was so far ahead. You're benefiting under a 70s era law, right? The one that
late 60s, early 70s, yeah.
Yeah, that recognized medical marijuana if a doctor recommended it.
And so far they haven't touched it. They haven't really messed with it. They are trying to narrow it down, but they're letting it stand. It's very disparate. I mean, even in the Madison suburbs, we have Monona, which just the other day decided not to reduce all marijuana fines to $1 if you're under 21. Because they had a panic attack and they decided, okay, we're going to vote against that. Whereas Fitchburg, which had the highest fines in the state, recently did go down to $1, and those are touching Madison, the state capital. So it really is a left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing. We can't get people on the same page.
So if somebody wants to reach you in Madison or at Wisconsin Normal, what's the best way to do that?
Well, you can actually contact me directly at McGlaspin, MacGlaspyn, @gmail.com, and I can hook you up with all of the local networks.
Okay. So, Lindsay, you moved here as a refugee from Idaho. I know your husband is here in the audience. He was an Idaho Normal coordinator.
Correct.
Do you want to tell us about what led to you coming here? You suffered some persecution, I believe.
Sure. So there's a term that my friend Lee Berger made up that is called canna bigotry, and that's basically the motivation of a prohibitionist practice. And in Idaho, there's a Senate concurrent resolution, which is not a binding piece, it's a temper tantrum, that says we don't want cannabis in Idaho ever. And I was the chief petitioner to legalize medical cannabis in my state for 3.5 years. My husband was the director of Idaho Normal. We had petitions running almost constantly through some Idaho Hope festivals in downtown Boise with our other activist friends, and really gave it probably the best effort that we possibly could have. And the state came in and raided our house without a warrant, stole our children for 17 days.
When was this?
This was in April of 2013.
Okay.
We got our kids back as quickly as possible.
17 days is a long time to a kid.
It's a long time to a parent as well, but
Yeah.
definitely long to a child.
Yeah.
We got our children back much different than than when they were taken.
Yeah. They were traumatized.
They were traumatized.
So they have PTSD, basically.
They do. They've had a very healthy, positive adjustment since coming to Oregon.
Yeah.
They've seen me get off all 22 pills that I was on to treat the multiple sclerosis and get my life back. And so for the kids and for us as parents, it's been a really positive adjustment coming here and leaving the persecution. But unfortunately, Idaho still is very persecuted. There's a lot of sick people there that really need help. And there's currently a petition to legalize medical cannabis in Idaho and decriminalize it for adults.
How do people get in touch with that initiative if they want to support it? And
that is New Approach Idaho. It's
New
on
Approach
Facebook.
Idaho.
They have a website. Bill Esbenson is the chief petitioner. He's on Facebook under William James Esbenson. I would really recommend people to reach out to him. Idaho definitely needs help. Idaho's got what's called a rolling signature count. So instead of, most often when a petition gets passed, it's done because it has funding, which Idaho has had a hard time acquiring. And most petitions also have to have huge amounts of funding to pay for an invalid signature. So every signature is basically given $1 or $2 or whatever that's decided. But in Idaho, every signature is validated within a few days. So a funder doesn't need to pay for signatures that are invalid. So it's an especially urgent, sad situation for Idaho because it's only going to cost about $50,000 to get all of those valid signatures, which sounds like a lot to some people, but to other people, that sounds affordable. And in a lot of states where you're gathering signatures, it's millions.
Oregon's cheap, and it's about $400,000 to get on the ballot.
Right.
With the statutory bill.
For $50,000, that's kind of a bargain
better
for a lot of people to be able to help. And, it definitely would help the sick Idahoans that need it the most.
We have another caller. We're going to go ahead and take that call. Welcome to the show, caller. Yes, you.
Okay. I have some friends that live in an apartment building, and they have no place to grow their own plants. I have a whole bunch of property, and I was just wondering, is it possible for me to grow their plants on my property?
I think the law is that you can only grow 4 plants per household. Is that the way it reads right now? So for a recreational adult use grow, non-medical, you can only grow 4 per address. However, if you have a large piece of property, you could segment off and create new addresses by taking parcels of that land and creating new addresses there.
I'm in a AF10. I'm in a farm property. They're not going to let us divide this.
Yeah, that won't work.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I wish I could give you better news.
So I really shouldn't try that then.
No. There are some apartments, like the one that Casper lives in, where they allow people to grow their own marijuana there. And they have for a number of years. At the one right by Reed College, it's Wimbledon Green and Wimbledon Square.
And they asked me when I moved in, after they found out that I was a professional hemp activist, which is really weird to list on your taxes. Professional hemp activist, and that I would probably need an apartment facing the sun so that my plants could get plenty of light.
Yeah, that's my friends' problem. They really don't have any sun exposure. And
well, give Wimbledon Square a call and tell them Casper Leach sent you there.
He'll get a break.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good luck. So, Lindsay, I know you had mentioned a specific video clip from the legislature. We're going to run just a couple minutes of this featuring Floyd Przansky. We'll be back with more callers right after this video interlude. We'll be right back.
1998. Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll move the -24s.
All right. Senator Przonski moves to adopt the -24 amendments to Senate Bill 1598. Is there any discussion?
Yes. The -24s, what that actually will do is hold the local governments again to the points that we'd made a decision during the 2015 session. Specifically, what we stated was that we were not going to have a distance requirement between medical versus recreational sites. And that they could be situated side by side if they wanted to, that the only distance requirement was going to be 1,000 feet between similar types, rec to rec or med to med. And what we do know is that from the testimony this last week, there are numerous cities that have actually established new distances that in violation of the intent of what we were put forward as to our goal to not have a distance between those two different facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to adopt the -24 amendments into Senate Bill 1598?
Madam Co-Chair?
Yes, sir.
This is a question I guess I would direct to Adam or Senator Przonski. Did we not do a reasonable man test for time, place, and manner, that they had to be reasonable?
Madam Chair, Senator Ferrioli, that was my understanding.
And that would give potentially a cause of action to folks who thought they were not treated reasonably. Thank you. That's my observation, Madam Chair.
That's correct.
Is there any further discussion on the -24 amendments? Senator Byer.
Matt, I'm not completely sure what your amendment does. Can you explain it again?
What the amendment does, it says that when we were meeting during the 2015 session, this committee, and then I believe based on the votes that we had on each of the floors, basically said that we are going to set a policy that says that a recreational facility, meaning retail outlet, and a medical dispensary would not have any arbitrary distance requirement between them, that they would be able to be seated even side by side. If you remember, that was when we were looking at potentially needing to maintain the integrity, the separateness of the programs, ensuring that the medical program was not going to be violated, as the terms of Measure 91 said we're not supposed to make changes. What I do know for a fact is that the city of Portland has actually instituted, based on some of the advocates going to them at the local level, and basically now they have a 1,000-foot requirement.
Okay. How did that vote go?
So that vote, he was voted against. And the reason that I had requested this video clip was that it was actually 4 no votes in a row against Senator Przonski's amendments, all of which were beneficial to OM&P growers and patients, many of which were said would be addressed next session. So a lot of those no votes were given without any real reason for the no vote to be given.
Right.
And or time.
Who are the people who are voting against us? They're on the Joint Committee. They love that name, the Joint Committee. I know.
love that name.
Yeah.
It's very appropriate. So you have
But
the.
you can't smoke a joint in there.
No, you cannot. So there's Senator Ferrioli has given us some pretty good opposition. Senator Byer on occasion has given us some opposition. Senator Cruz on occasion has given us some opposition. On the House side, it hasn't been as much, but I feel like if we could reach out to these members of the committee and explain to them what we desire for our programs and what we need to keep going the way that we currently operate, and see where we can find middle ground, would be especially beneficial. And when I see a senator that advocates hard for the OM&P get voted down repeatedly, that shows me that we need to contact the members of the committee that voted no and ask them to support the amendments for the OM&P from any senator or representative on that committee.
So that's the main message we need to get across to our viewers, especially the ones here in Oregon. So we need to contact those representatives and your own representative in the legislature in Salem and urge them to support these bills and to help medical marijuana patients. So your job is there. Please do that.
I would like to interlude, though, that the senators that I said, can give opposition have also given great support. And I do want to say that this session, there was a lot of growth on this committee. So I feel that when we call them, if we
be
give
respectful.
yes,
You're not going to get anywhere if you're yelling and
reasonable,
acting angry.
You know,
Oh,
there's.
then I shouldn't call.
You probably should.
But that being said, if you feel that you're someone that shouldn't call, please write.
That's
you know,
true.
there's a lot of different methods of communication, and they do need to hear from us very much right now.
I really appreciate the fact that you've been going down there and doing that. Oregon is amazingly open to citizen lobbying, probably more so than many other areas. And I went down and I've just seen them change laws based on testimony right in front of you. In fact, I took a job as an aide to a state senator during her first campaign back in '97 to try to stop the recriminalization of marijuana. I was an aide to Senator Kate Brown, who's now the governor. And Governor Kitzhaber actually signed that into law, and we had to get 90,000 signatures to stop it from going into effect in the '98 vote. But it's amazing how effective you can be to do that. So we have John standing by the microphone who wants to say something.
Yes, this is Judy texted me and asked me if I would please go to Mike and ask if any changes or proposed changes to the number of plants we can grow and how much we, OMMP patients that is, can have on hand.
So those changes came last year with House Bill 3400, and those changes are currently going into effect. There was a stay of plants allowed until May 1st for the 96, and there's grandfathered grows, and most places are down to 48 and then down to 12. So it just depends. Please look at local ordinances and state law. Local ordinances can be different. The changes that came from this session are the ones that allow for those micro canopies. And those micro canopies are a pretty big deal.
And that would be licensed with OLCCs.
That would, yes, that would be OHA growers that are providing medicine for patients to opt into the OLCC market.
So then you wouldn't have a number of plants limited, but you'd be limited to at least, you said
Canopy.
1,250 square feet of canopy.
Correct.
Or 5,000 square feet of canopy,
Correct.
depending on which
And
license.
that's in House Bill 1598. And it definitely explains it very well. And then the OLCC will go through their same rulemaking process that they did with House Bill 3400. So then we'll see all these new rules come out that will affect just these people. And we'll see rules come out from each piece of legislation from the OLCC and from the OHA, likely the Department of Agriculture, because cannabis is now a farm use.
Right, for him.
Yes. Well, actually for medical cannabis as well, they modified that.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on right there. I would very much encourage everybody to keep up with the OLCC website, keep up with the OHA website, because the rules that will come down from these, there's going to be additional licensing available and what's called a personal agreement. So instead of a patient saying this person is my grower, which is still allowed, they can opt in with these bigger providers and these canopies and have personal agreements where they're both signing up and saying that they're agreeing to these terms, and then those people can still provide medicine to those patients and additional patients as well. So it will actually broaden some access, especially in counties that medical grows are allowed, but maybe a dispensary isn't.
So we are down to just 4 minutes left here, Lindsay. You're also working with Serious Extracts. You want to just give them a plug or tell us what you're doing with them here in 30 seconds or less?
Sure, I'm their lobbyist, and so we were lobbying for patients and for extracts. You know, we wanted to make sure that we could keep providing extracts to patients the way that we currently do. There had been some legislation that said that we could only take our extracts into a dispensary, and so we fought really hard and we got an amendment to Senate Bill 1598 that the committee actually liked so much that they adopted. So Anthony Taylor from Compassionate Oregon wrote this beautiful language that said we could give oil back to the person that provided the cannabis for extraction if they were a card holder. And then the second part of that amendment was for the cost of production, which is the part that we had. So in the cost of production part, the original thing was for free or the cost of production. And so we are able to go ahead and give patients medicine under the way we currently have it.
So if someone wants to reach you or find out more, do you have a website we can direct people to, Lindsay, to get involved with what you're doing?
I can send them to my email address. You
Okay,
can go
go
to
right ahead.
greenstrikeconsulting@gmail.com and
One more time?
greenstrikeconsulting@gmail.com. Yep.
Consulting
Yep.
@gmail.com. Okay. Jason, do you want to give another plug for Wisconsin Normal and your activities?
Well, yeah. If you're in Wisconsin, contact your legislators. Like you were saying, it's an individual effort. You have to contact it on the local level, and you have to work for your rights individually. And whenever enough individuals get together, that's whenever you can change things. You guys here in Oregon are leading the way, and you're setting an example for everyone else. We're trying to be more like you, so you guys are doing a fantastic job. We unfortunately have scaled back a lot of our progressive tactics that the state was used to.
Since Scott Walker
Right.
took over with his anti-labor.
Right. We're rolling back, decades-old laws, and
right.
So you guys you're
keep
doing it right.
up the fight, and I'll see you at the Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest.
Look forward
next
to it.
October. Casper?
Be sure to go to timeforhemp.com. Check it out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can find over 20 hosts doing their best to let you know how important it is to end the prohibition. And all of our MP3s are free to download. You can also go there and watch us grow 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in high-definition camera, our own medical marijuana gardens, legal here in the state of Oregon. So you at the DEA, all you can do is just sit there and watch. And don't forget, Time for Hemp is like a good joint, always best when you share it with your friends. Thank you, Paul.
All right, and if you are looking for a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana authorization, whether it be in Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, California, Michigan, maybe even Wisconsin, and points in between, give us a call. You can call us from anywhere in the U.S. at that toll-free number. It's 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. If you're here in Portland, that's 281-5100. 503-281-5100. We'll be back next week. We're going to go out with another great song by Mr. John Cornette. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp. Night.